Hey everybody, it's Luke here. I want to try a new segment out on my channel. I want to call it Review Roundup. So for everything that I didn't review on the channel for the month of August, I want to quickly talk about right here and right now. I'm going to try to do this for every month because honestly, I see a lot of movies in theaters and it's hard for me to keep up with reviewing them all consistently, making a full review. So I think this will be a good format for me to still get my opinion out, but not have to worry so much about making like a full-length video about it. So the first movie I want to talk about that I saw at the beginning of August was Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot. Going into this movie, I didn't really know what it was about. I was expecting it to be kind of a light-hearted comedy, which it was. It stars Joaquin Phoenix as an alcoholic who gets into a really bad car accident and ends up becoming paralyzed for the rest of his life. I'd say that overall, this film was mostly a pretty touching story about someone overcoming alcoholism and dealing with a really tough situation that they will never be able to get themselves out of. Joaquin Phoenix delivers another amazing performance. I've never really seen him in a bad movie. Overall, I think this film pretty successfully blends comedy with tragedy. I do think that sometimes the storytelling in this movie is a little bit confusing. There's a lot of jumping back and forth between time periods to before he got into his accident, after he got into his accident, recovering from the accident. Sometimes it was cool to see the movie told in that way, but other times I think that it got a little lost and it was hard to tell exactly which period of time we were in. Also, there were a few characters, there are a lot of characters in the movie actually, and quite a few of them feel pretty underdeveloped. For example, there's a scene about halfway through the movie with Carrie Brownstein's character, and the conversation that she has with Joaquin Phoenix implies that they've had issues in the past or that they've kind of butt heads before, but I didn't really get that from the two characters because there wasn't really a scene with them before where they were butting heads. So they imply that there's this history that Joaquin Phoenix's character keeps asking for things and she keeps denying him, but there was never anything before that that made me know that, so it kind of felt a little awkward. Like Rooney Mara's character, she really isn't in the movie a whole lot, yet she's kind of front and center on the poster almost, and doesn't serve that much of a purpose in my opinion. But Jonah Hill is really, to me, the heart and soul of this movie. His performance is really down to earth and really sincere, and his character is one of the most likable and most outspoken characters in the entire movie. So overall, I liked Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot. I think it definitely had some issues with its storytelling and character development, but overall, I think it is an entertaining movie that doesn't get boring and has a lot of really great performances from a lot of really talented actors. Next up is Disney's Christopher Robin. To me, this movie was a little drab. It could have definitely used a little more splash of color. Overall, the whole thing was just a little bit boring, pretty predictable, honestly, and just kind of unspecial. It was such a dreary, gray, gross-looking movie. I really wish it would have had a little bit more light to it. It definitely has some heartwarming scenes with Pooh and all the other animals of the wood. I think that the best parts of the film were definitely between Ewan McGregor and Pooh interacting, and Ewan McGregor interacting with the rest of the animals, but there really just wasn't enough of that. It's a really unsubstantial film. There isn't anything super special about it. I didn't really have any expectations going into this movie because I watched Winnie the Pooh as a younger kid, but I don't have any super fond memories of watching Winnie the Pooh, so I don't have that nostalgic attachment to what this film was going to be. Next up, we have Blackkklansman. Now this is the new Spike Lee film that stars John David Washington, and it also stars Adam Driver and Topher Grace. And you all know what this movie's about. It's a true story of a black cop in Colorado Springs who infiltrated the KKK in the late 70s. And this movie's just really entertaining. Its two leads are very likable. Adam Driver is always awesome, and John David Washington hasn't been in much. I've never seen him before, but he's pretty great. The KKK members in this film, some of them are pretty over the top, which is funny, and they're stupid, which is a perfectly fine way to paint these kind of people. But at the same time, I do wish that they were a little bit more smart smart because that would have given the film a little bit more drama. It's just kind of a laughing stock. It's a laughing stock of the KKK. It treats them like complete idiots, and I'm totally fine with that because it was still entertaining and it was still a movie that I wanted to sit through and see through to the very end. I would also say that the last act of the film kind of takes a while for itself to wrap up. There's a lot of build up to the finale of the film, and I think that build up could have been cut a little bit because it started to drag a little bit there. Topher Grace playing the KKK leader was brilliant. That's kind of the perfect role for him. I thought that John David Washington and his conversations over the phone were really exciting to watch, and like I said before, just really funny. And at the very end of this film, I don't want to spoil it, but there is a major shift in tone at the very end, and I understand why it was put into the movie. It is kind of jarring, and it leaves you feeling pretty crappy at the end of the movie, while most of the film had this more light-hearted almost tone, a more uplifting tone in a way. So deciding to put the footage at the very end of the film that was in there, I don't mind it, but it is, I just wanted to note that it did feel maybe a little strange, but I think that's the response Spike Lee was probably trying to get out of people who watched the movie. But no, I really liked Blackkklansman. I thought it was really entertaining. I was pretty impressed with Spike Lee's direction. I honestly haven't watched very many of his films. The only one that ever pops to mind is the Oldboy remake. That movie can just go away. I do not like the remake to Oldboy, as most people don't. But this film definitely kind of reinforced hope that I had for Spike Lee. So I'll definitely go back and watch some of his older, more well-known films as time goes on. And the last film that I saw in the month of August was Crazy Rich Asians. Now, is the story of Crazy Rich Asians anything particularly special at its core? Not really. It's a pretty typical, like, romantic comedy with a girl who's just from middle class, average, and she's dating a guy who's in the very, very high class. I think that Constance Wu's character and her performance, definitely the most interesting. I think that her character has to overcome a lot throughout the film, while her boyfriend character, to me, was just really bland and boring. As far as his performance went, I'm not sure what the actor's name is. It was fine, it's just that that character is such a blank slate, and he doesn't really have a lot to work with. He's just kind of the perfect guy, so in that way, it makes this movie kind of cliched. There is a little bit of drama between him and his mother in the film, played by, shit, what's her name? From Tomorrow Never Dies and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. What is her name? Michelle Yeoh, I think is her name. As far as the direction goes, there's a lot of energy to this film. People have talked endlessly about the food scenes, and it's a really extravagant film that really doesn't hold back in a lot of places. And I think for me what makes this film really work is that even though it is a really generic story that we've seen a million times, it has a really great cast of characters, and they've already announced a sequel for this film, and I gotta say, I'm looking forward to revisiting all these characters again. But yeah, I think Crazy Rich Asians succeeds at being a film that's a little bit different, being an all-Asian cast. It is able to eliminate some of the tropes that typical movies like this would get into. But in all honesty, I think that Constance Wu really leads this movie and makes it enjoyable to watch, along with the other array of cast and characters that join her along the ride. We need a solid romantic comedy every now and then, and I think that this one works on it at a pretty good level. So that's my review roundup for the month of August. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, hit the like button, comment, let me know what you thought about these movies if you saw them, and I will talk to all of you later.